Happy Hump Day. Happy Wednesday. You saw Jonathan Kahn as the shout out today. I think we have Jonathan Kahn back on with us in August. I'm not sure if he's going to be at Reawaken in Tulsa or not, but it's always good to have the rabbi on. He's so good at going deep into the Hebrew. His books, if you haven't seen his books, you'll have to check them out. They're all absolutely spectacular. Speaking of the Hebrew, I talked about this today on Wednesdays with Julie Green. I was told by two different sources that Jared Kushner is negotiating right now with Jordan over the Temple Mount. And most people don't realize that even though Israel, the Temple Mount is in Israel, the ability to get on the Temple Mount is approved by Jordan. That was part of the peace deal, I think, in 1967 on East Jerusalem. So getting Jordan to relinquish the Temple Mount, allowing for the third temple to be built. Wow, are we in some biblical times? You saw Rabbi Singer on with me. I think it was 2 weeks ago. One of the top rabbis in Jerusalem. We're going to get him back and talk about this, the third temple, and hopefully do an Ezekiel 38 and 39 study together. But he believes we are on the brink of the third temple being built as well. You got the third temple ready to be built. You got Euphrates River drying up, and the map of the Omega. You can't make this stuff up. We are absolutely in the end times and glory times. Not to be gloomy, as Manny Johnson says, do not, it's glory days. All right. U.S. and Iran, the fragile peace deal, there's been strikes back and forth between U.S. and Iran that has the markets shook. Dow is down 496 points. NASDAQ is down 234. All the cryptocurrencies are down as well. Bitcoin to 65,000. Some of that is because Michael Saylor sold 32 Bitcoin and got people to freak out. XRP's at 120. Great time to get into XRP at 120. I don't know if it's going to get any cheaper than that. The next July 4th is going to be a key date for gold and silver, but also crypto. Again, I heard the crypto, the XRP specifically, is going to be the rail of this new system that is coming that President Trump keeps talking about, the old system being out of date, and we need new rails, and that is on the doorstep. Silver's down, getting a hit a little today, 73.47. Gold at 4,449, down 39. But a great time to stack your silver and your gold. Silver and gold are mine, saith the Lord. Crude oil creeping back up to 96 because of all this stuff in the Middle East. Also, John Solomon is reporting, and multiple sources. You'll see some of it on our feed today. Monkeypox. This is crazy. I had Dr. Bartlett on probably a year ago talking about monkeypox, and there was two NHI people. The Detroit FBI got involved and stopped them having vials of monkeypox in Detroit. So and now I believe John Solomon is reporting that this happened in January and it's just being talked about now. I think that is the story. I'll have to find that out. But this is the third time in Detroit and specifically Ann Arbor, Michigan. I don't know if this is connected to Ann Arbor, Michigan, the University of Michigan. Two other times, people have been caught bringing in biotype weapons to the University of Michigan and to Michigan. Well, you got Dearborn not too far from there either. Yeah, this is not good stuff. All right, I think that's all the information up front. Let's get into the news. All right, Polymarket. FBI announces 2 NIH researchers have been charged with conspiring to smuggle monkeypox into the United States. They are not going to quit whatsoever. You don't hear anything about the hantavirus anymore because Americans just said, we don't believe in it. But now they're going to come back with monkeypox again. There's going to be probably another COVID. They're going to throw everything at the American people before this midterm election because they know President Trump is sitting on some bombshells. And as soon as they start popping these Trump cards, they're going to flip out, and they're being proactive. That's why you're seeing stuff that are paid instigators in ICE in New Jersey. You're going to see, as I've been saying, the George Floyd 2.0 riots all over the country. They're going to create chaos, and even maybe to the point where they have to shut down the power in the internet because they're not going to want the truth to get out. All right, speaking of truth, here's Joe Rogan. Let's listen.
I think we're all here for a reason. I think we're here to experience something very strange and profound. And there's an event There's an event that we're building up to. And I think that's why there's this focus on disclosure. That's why this documentary hit so hard. Guys like Marco Rubio are sticking their neck out, and Tulsi Gabbard and Rep Luna. You know, she came on my podcast too, and she was telling me some stuff that was just like mind blowing. And she really got me to read the Book of Enoch. She's like, you got to read that. Like that is nuts. And that could have easily been attached to the religious canon. But some rabbis disagreed with it because it didn't vibe with the Torah. So like, let's chuck that one out. But it's in the same lump of Dead Sea Scrolls as they have the Book of Isaiah, which is really fascinating because Wes Huff, when he was on my podcast, explained to me that the Book of Isaiah that they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls is verbatim the same as the Book of Isaiah that was 1,000 years more recent.
Whoa.
1,000 years. So this was the oldest version that they thought was the oldest version. And then they found the Dead Sea Scrolls version, which was 1,000 years older.
Whoever thought on their bingo card, did you hear Joe Rogan talking about the Book of Enoch, Dead Sea Scrolls, and how perfect the scroll of Isaiah? We take our tour down to the Qumran caves, our groups. So we go through the caves where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, which he's referring to, and the prophet Isaiah, the entire scroll in its entire totality, like he said, it was 1,000 years before. Complete. It's the only complete book they have. And it's in the copy of it is in the Israeli Museum in Jerusalem today. You can go in there and see the scroll. We take our groups in to see that scroll that they got from the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's all there, including Isaiah 53. Lots of Jewish people like to remove Isaiah 53 out of their Bible, or they say Isaiah 53 is an allegory, because when you read Isaiah 53, and then back in the day there wasn't verses, so actually the last part of Isaiah 52 should fit in with Isaiah 53, and then we see something peculiar, that he was that they ripped the beard off the Messiah. So now we have a reason why maybe he was not recognizable, because they ripped his beard off. And then they went into as if the prophet Isaiah was literally watching the crucifixion of the Messiah right before our very eyes. Just Bible prophecy, and showing the Bible is absolutely true. In the Book of Enoch, I'm thinking about doing a Book of Enoch and a Book of Yasser joint study, even though it's not canon in some of our Bibles. The Book of Yasser is referenced 3 times in our Bible. And the Book of Enoch, Enoch 1 specifically, shows you all the things that you need to know about it. So we will get into that. Amazing. Once you know the Book of Enoch, everything with these UFOs makes sense. All right, I want to play this video of the Crown Prince. This is very important.
هناك بلا شك مشاريع كثيرة في العالم هدامة، وللأسف اليوم أن أغلب هذه المشاريع الهدامة موجودة في الشرق الأوسط وبجوارنا في المملكة العربية السعودية. هناك نظام إيراني نعرف جميعا بأنه هدف أيديولوجي بحت، ليس هدفه خدمة مصالح إيران والمواطنين الإيرانيين، بل هدفه خدمة مصالح الأيديولوجية الإيرانية، والأدلة كثيرة من 30 سنة الماضية، وآخرها حصلوا على 150 مليار دولار لم يبنوا حتى شارع أو مجمع سكني أو مجمع صناعي في إيران، فهدفهم واضح، فقط دفعوا فيها لإرسال صواريخ للسعودية ودعم منظمات إرهابية في أماكن كثيرة في العالم. أيضا عمل النظام الإيراني على دعم الإرهاب ليس فقط في حزب الله أو الحوثيين أو هذه المنظمات. نجد اليوم الكثير من قيادات القاعدة متواجدة في إيران، بما فيهم ابن أسامة بن لادن، ترعرع وتربى وكبر في إيران، والآن هو يحاول أن يكون القائد القادم لتنظيم القاعدة. فجميعا نعرف هذا المخاطر، وليس لدينا أي ضبابية على هذه المخاطر، ونحن نتواصل ونتفاهم كيف نتعامل معها، ونتأكد أن العالم كله آمن وسليم، سواء في الشرق الأوسط أو في أوروبا أو في أي أماكن أخرى في العالم، من هذه الأفكار الهدامة.
Amazing times we live in, and what the prince is talking about is literally for the first time in history, Ezekiel 38 and 39 coming into play. All the nations are in play. Matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu threatened Turkey next after Iran's over, and that was one of the last pieces is Turkey. Turkey also has a dam inside of Turkey that they could close that dam, which would make the Euphrates River dry up. So Bible prophecy right before our very eyes. Rabbi Singer, who was on with me last week thinks that we're in Ezekiel 38 and 39 as we speak. I don't agree, but it's interesting nevertheless, because first time in history, all these things are coming into fruition. Light wind. All right, you asked for it. It's available now. His Glory is now on Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick TV, and Android. Live around the clock, every show on demand. It's free. Grab your remote on your phone, search His Glory, and download it today. There you go. You'll see that crossing against our bottom third going forward, but people always ask to be able to do this. Keep your regular His Glory app for your computer and your phone, but this is for your living room to watch all of the 24/7 programming, including the War Report, Wednesdays with Julie Green, right here on all those platforms. All right, let's continue in the news. All right, Gunther, President Trump dropped another post about the deep state cover-up, the infamous letter signed by 51 intelligence officers, officials, that falsely smeared the Hunter Biden laptop as Russia disinformation. Right before the 2020 election, were reportedly a coordinated lie to protect. Let's see the rest of this. Protect the Biden crime family. We have ex-Intel official confirming it was deliberate deception operation, and the DOJ has been asked to probe it. This is what President Trump sent this out. I was told by a couple people to get the Marco Polo. I think I might be missing it, saying it wrong. But he actually signed the book that he sent to me. Anyway, that's a big book about all the things that were in Hunter Biden's laptop, open source, and they tried to hide it. All this stuff was true. About what Hunter Biden did, but what they tried to lie and say it was Russian propaganda was an absolute lie, and they're going to get caught in that. Cooked in a squat. All right, the general. President Trump announces a plan to seize assets and shut down the bank accounts of illegal immigrants who engage in fraud. Wonderful. There's also a call for President Trump just to say any illegal threaten a bank. If any bank is giving banking, any type of banking fees or any open a bank account to any illegal, they could be in trouble as well. That's exactly what we need to do. That will cut off the money flow tremendously. All right, let's see Marco Rubio, Venezuela's oil.
I can tell you, for the first time, certainly, since in the pre-Chavez era, maybe ever, and certainly since the post-Chavez era, the oil wealth of the country is not being stolen. The oil wealth of the country is going directly to pay government workers, buy medical equipment, audited by KPMG. That's a significant advance. That's not a permanent situation, but that's a very valuable one today. You have seen reforms. You have seen, for example, the infamous prison, El Acoide, has been closed. You still have about 400 and something, what we determined to believe to be political prisoners, but you've had many others that have been released, including many high-profile ones. You've seen a systemic reform in individuals involved in their government, replaced by new people. Some we don't know well, others we know a little bit about, but certainly better than the people whose place they took before. You've seen a level of cooperation on a couple of topics that I actually can't even discuss in a setting like this, but be more than happy to talk to you about, any of you about, in the appropriate setting. And I think that's been a positive.
Amazing. He explained that articulately so well. He is probably the best Secretary of State that we've had in my lifetime. He's done an incredible job. I was told today, too, that 18% of all oil revenue is going to the bottom line of the United States. And now that China's going to be buying oil from Venezuela, soon from Iran, that's all being handled by the United States. That is good news for the United States, bad news for China, but also good news, as you heard right there, for the Venezuelan people and Iranian people at some point. All right, C3, over the last 20 years, elections that do not declare a winner on election night. Wow, 80% of them go for Democrat. Imagine that, 20% Republican. And the Republicans that won are probably rhinos that were rigged by both sides anyway. All right, it's time for the financial report. All right, financial report with Bo Pony. Hi, Bo.
Pastor Dave, it's great to see you again. I was just listening in the last part of your talk there, and you were talking about oil.
Yep.
Don't you have, or aren't you holding a little fun stock called Zion Oil?
I am.
So the Lord's been actually highlighting oil to me, Zion oil, particularly these past, since our last podcast, and probably before that. So probably for the past 2 months, he's been highlighting very specifically Zion oil to me, as it is a indicator. Because we always want in life, when you look at markets, you want an indicator. What's an indicator? It's a foreshadowing. It's something that leads the market. Okay. And so we've said specifically with regards to market movement, you always want to be on the right side of history. Okay. What's the right side of history? Well, Pastor Dave and I were talking about silver, and it was at $20, yep. $17, $20, $25. Okay. Everybody who listened presently is on the correct side of history, because as we speak, silver's at $73. Okay. That's positioning yourself and waiting upon the Lord. But at the same time, if you position yourself and you listen to the Lord clearly, the Lord's been saying very specifically, okay, first off, God cannot lie. Okay. So the prophecies have been very specific. Silver is God's money, Haggai 2:8, and not through one prophet that Pastor Dave has had on his show, but numerous people. Lord has been speaking through them that silver is going to go down in price. No, right, Pastor Dave? It's going to go up in price, okay? And so why I'm saying that is because God can't lie. So what I'm showing here is God can't lie. He hasn't lied. And everybody who's listened to the prophetic is sitting right now on the correct side of history, but yet we haven't seen a price explosion. But everybody who's sitting on the correct side is already probably some in the vicinity of 3 times in the money right now. In other words, if you bought at 25 and it's at 75, that's a 3x move of what you were positioning at. Even if you bought at 50, who cares? You're still up, okay? And God has been speaking very clearly through his prophets that silver is going to explode. Okay, so back to, again, prophecy. Can God lie? And the answer is no. He's spoken through his prophets that silver is going to not go up to 121 again. He didn't say that. He said it's going to go and explode through $121. Okay. So why I say this is because God's been basically showing me to follow Zion oil. He said, take your charts that I've shown you over the years and apply the chart pattern to Zion oil, and you'll see something interesting. And I love that word, interesting, right? So, because when you look at the word interesting, Ecclesiastes tells us that which has been will be again. There's nothing new under the sun, okay? What this Zion chart is showing us, okay, that specifically, if you look on the left side here, Zion topped at the 42-cent mark at a roughly in January, the end of January, exactly when silver topped at $121. Okay, silver tops at $121, and the same time point, Zion topped at 42 cents. Point is, same cycle point. Then we saw in March, Zion oil cavitated, dropped down to 32 cents. Oh, well, look what happened to silver in March. It dropped down to $68. Same exact time point. Oh, let's compare to gold. Oh, same thing. Gold topped out in January and dropped down in March down to 4,200, 4,100. Exactly like Zion oil did. You see, so all you have to add in, Pastor Dave, is the word price manipulation, price suppression. Have you been talking about that on your show, Pastor Dave? Yep. I guarantee you have, okay? Why? Because Zion oil shows that the bottom came in for silver, gold, and Zion oil in March. Zion oil is on an explosion path right now. Watch this Friday. Watch next week. Zion's about to explode through 62 cents. It's going straight to $1 and beyond. This is the cycle the Lord has shown me, which means that if Zion's exploding, very soon, let's leave it the word soon, silver is going to explode through $121. Very soon, gold's going to blow through $5,600, its last high. What I'm trying to say here is you can't stop what's about to happen. That which has been will be again. There is nothing new under the sun. I showed you Zion is the leading indicator of the charts the Lord is showing me. And it's showing that Zion oil is about to explode. Like we're talking Friday, this week, whatever, next week. Let's just throw June at it, okay? Zion's exploding in June. Nobody can stop it, which means it's an act of God that's about to happen. We're at a historic time point as we head into the 4th of July year. America's about to be reborn, the golden age. And it's marked with silver and gold explosion in June. This is so close. Zion's leading, telling us we're about here. All heck's about to break loose, Pastor Dave. I don't know what people are telling you, but the charts are screaming, fasten your seatbelts. This is the time we have always prayed for, Pastor Dave.
Yeah, they were telling me that these next 30 days are going to be crazy, chaotic in the world, and that's what's going to drive all this up. And watch Zion. I thought, in 2015, when I first invested it here from the Lord, I thought I was the only one in the world that knew about Zion. Now everybody's talking about Zion. I love it. All right, thank you, Bo. All right, let's continue in the news. Speaking of Zion Oil and Gas, I think I mentioned at the War Report some His Glory family members that are related to the founder of Zion Oil and Gas, John Brown. He passed last week. He's gone home to be with the Lord. It was John Brown who started that faith with Zion Oil and Gas, and now he's going to be able to see that motherlode hit from the pearly gates of heaven. All right, Polymarket, just in, Tucker Carlson, odds soar in the 2020 presidential election. Nearly 10% chance he's the GOP nominee. Not my pick. I don't think there's a lot of picks for Tucker. Maybe Tucker's playing a role. Benny Johnson, election interference in California. Ballots are being burned, drop boxes torched, voting center vandalized, all in the only Republican-leaning areas left in Los Angeles. Let's see the rest of that. There's also reports California already needs weeks to count their votes and how people have faith in these results. They can't have faith. There was a report coming in yesterday, too, that a period of batches of votes came in and not a single vote for Pratt, which is mathematically impossible. So at least, there's a runoff between the two of them, Bass and the Republican. So we'll see in about 5 more weeks. You got to get the vote out because they're going to cheat. I think President Trump's got some Trump cards to play around election and skyscrapers. Amazing. Also, just in LA, ABC News is reporting they're still counting votes in the LA mayor's race. One city, and they still haven't got all the votes done. You always count votes until you got enough to win. Also, there was a hostage situation in California today. 10 hostages were taken. They have gotten them back safely, and the suspect was killed. So a lot going on over there. All right, let's continue in the news. All right, Gunther, people running central banks used to pile into U.S. debt. Now they're piling into gold. That's why you got to go to hgngold.com. Stack up on the gold and silver. Now let's go back to that for a second. That's a major, major deal. Gold just passed the U.S. Treasury. The world's reserve system may be changed. This is the first time in history that's happened. And silver is the one that's going to catch up quicker. Wow. All right, acting AG. Yesterday, following a month-long investigation by the Homeland Security Task Force, authorities discovered a sophisticated cross-border tunnel connecting Tijuana, Mexico to a building posing as a retail store in Mesa, California, near the port of entry. They are so sophisticated. When we did down on the border, down by the border on His Glory TV, you can see all our border. We did a border series in Arizona, and we did a border series in Texas. They did something similar that they think it cost about $10 million, and they went right under the checkpoint, build a checkpoint with rails right underneath them. and nobody knew. When we were there for filming, our host was saying, "This is what we don't see this every day." You had all types of top security from our federal government to see what this, because they just found this this tunnel, and they thought there could be potentially nuclear or some kind of bio terror in that tunnel. Turns out it wasn't, but crazy how detailed that is. All right, here's Marco Rubio again.
To stop, but part of that agreement was that they would reopen the straits. They did not, at which point the president decided, and I think appropriately, we can't have a world in which only Iranian ships get through the straits. And so if they're going to shut down the straits for everybody, we're going to shut down the straits for them. And we have done that through a very effective blockade, and by the way, through the seizure of sanctioned ships in the Indo-Pacific as well. The cost to Iran every single day in lost revenue is in the hundreds of millions of dollars that they are losing in lost revenue that they're not generating as a result of that. Now, we are in talks, and I say talks because talks with Iran are not like talks with Switzerland, okay? They're very different. They require the use of intermediaries, unfortunately. But there is the prospect before us, which could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen next week, that for the first time, certainly in my memory, they have agreed to negotiate aspects of their nuclear program that just a month ago, just a year ago, they were refusing to even mention, much less enter into discussions about. That is not a guarantee that ultimately it will feel it's acceptable to the Senate or acceptable to the American people. But we'll be able to, in a process, to truly test the property. Their internal somewhat from their going.
All right, just update from ABC News. Supreme Court allows Alabama to use GOP-friendly election map. So there's some GOPs that are very happy in Alabama. All right, MJ Truth Ultra, two National Institutes of Health researchers, as we said earlier, were charged with a conspiracy to smuggle monkeypox into the United States. They claimed that their suitcase only contained diagnostic and testing equipment until CBP and FBI Detroit Joint Terrorism Task Force got involved. Wow, that is not good. All right, rapid response. Dr. Oz on the disaster known as Obamacare. And remember, not only would Obamacare, he said he could keep your doctors and your prices would go down. Both of them were a lie. We find out that Barack Obama got a commission off Obamacare to the tune of something like $20-some million. And now Dr. Oz says it's even worse. We believe that 35% roughly of the people that are using Obamacare exchanges may not even be legit, and that the actual number may translate to 5 to 6 million people we could be paying premiums for. Wow. So that's where the money is going to Barack Obama to build all his houses. Crazy. All right, Nicholas, we now have internal documents proving that FDA covered up 25 plus COVID shot safety signals, including sudden death, heart attacks, pulmonary strokes, brain damage, and blood clots. They lied to the American people, and they tried to delete it. It didn't work. All right, redacted. American people are slowly prepared for the biggest revelation in history. Let's watch.
That's what I've been told, that at the highest levels, the guys that are read and briefed on this stuff, it's not just, hey, we have craft, we've got some bodies. It's getting content.
And a relationship.
Exactly right. Treaties, agreements. So far down the line, we probably have a space fleet that's off planet at this point. From things I've heard, we are so far down the line. How do you tell the American people? Like, where do you even begin? I guess this is where you begin, right? No. If you're going to do it, you got to drip it. You got to drip it. And then it's like, just like I said earlier, that the president was clear in his post about this disclosure. He's going to put it all out there, and he's going to trust, I think these were even his words, trust that the American people will draw the right conclusions. At least this was the words behind the scene that was conveyed to me. Yeah. Trust that the American people are going to draw the correct conclusion. What's the correct conclusion? Yeah, this is all real. That's the correct conclusion. Now, will Americans draw that conclusion? Some of us will, but there's a lot of there's a psyop narrative, a very persistent psyop narrative out there that all of this is just Project Bluebeam, or this is just narratives from this or the other. And yes, the narrative can be conveniently used for whatever, right?
Remember, it's not a coincidence that Steven Spielberg's movie's coming out. I believe it's June 10th in theaters. They always time these things perfectly. You're going to see, if we get to the feed too, there is a Catholic priest that's talking about this as well. And he claims again, like, we know what they are. They are demons. All right, Real Robert, this is two of the most shocking congressional testimonies ever delivered in Congress in the U.S. history. Let's see the rest of this. I'll skip over most of this because this is very long. This is J.J. Carroll. Did you know that the politician said after I stated thousands of children are being raped right now as I speak? Looks like we're out of time. Then, and this was icing on the cake, the Republican politicians asked me a real serious question. Do you want to take a picture? Both parties are incompetent, corrupt, and evil. J.J. Carroll, you've seen him on His Glory many times. He is to the point. He's blunt. He doesn't put up with the nonsense. And he was the first one ever coming on His Glory to say the illegal immigrants that came in, the number is 50 million. And when you combine with the ones that are coming in under HB1, that's 105 million illegals in our country. And he goes on to say, I state without reservation, the United States federal government under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. He went on to say he has served for President Trump. I won't go into the rest, but he tells you the way it is. This is exactly right. It was all about the children. We documented that in our documentary, so you can see on hisglory.tv. It is absolutely sick. And one of the people that we were met with, they bragged about it on camera. All right, Wall Street Mav, hantavirus sure disappeared quickly once we made it clear we're not doing that again. So what do you got? Next is monkeypox. Well, they got caught by the FBI in Detroit. What's next? All right, Real Robert, here it is, leak audio recording. Hillary Clinton caught on audio recording calling for rigged elections. Let's see the rest of this. You can listen to this on your own. You can clearly hear that she's saying this. Hillary Clinton, I don't think we would have pushed for an election in the Palestinian territories. I think that's a big mistake. And if we were going to push for an election, then we should have made sure that we did something to determine who is going to win. Like she thought she was going to win in 2016. They had it rigged. In other words, the same strategies used abroad, rigging elections, toppling governments, and framing and blackmailing state officials are now being used right here on American soil. Not only on American soil, but with Patrick Byrne coming on Take 5 last week, we know that the United States government or Venezuela did that to 72 other countries and been doing it in the United States for at least 20 years, according to the reporting that General Flynn and Patrick Byrne came up with. All right, here's Secretary Rubio.
Cuba's a very different thing. Yeah. Right? I mean, I think the misnomer about Cuba, or the misunderstanding about Cuba's actually not controlled by the government. Cuba's controlled by a military holding company named Gaesa. And Gaesa virtually owns anything. They own the tourist sector, they own mining, they own the gas stations, they own everything. They generate about 70% of Cuba's GDP is under the control of this military company. And they're sitting on between $14 and $17 billion in assets. So you have people literally starving, people literally like power grid that hasn't been maintained in 10 years. And yet you have this holding military company sitting on these assets. And by the way, not a penny of the money in the military holding company translates over to the public treasury. So the fundamental challenge we have here is that Cuba needs to be, in order for it not to continue to be a failed state, which poses a threat to the United States, they need systemic and serious reform. They need to have economic reforms. And the question is, can they possibly reform, given the people who are currently in charge, both of Gaesa and of their government? And I think the answer is they can. I really don't believe this system is capable of reform unless new people take over.
All right, here's Eric. Democrat Rep. Dan Goldman is fuming as he walks outside a mega master immigration hearing where the Trump administration is surging through illegal alien cases so they can have them deported. This is Goldman. They are essentially having an assembly line. Let's see the rest of this. He's complaining because President Trump brought in extra judges, 77 more immigration judges, to get the illegals processed through the system and out or stay based on their judgment. He says in this assembly line, and as many as 100 people just rolling people through, it's disgraceful. The Trump administration recently hired over 80 immigration judges. The immigration judges are in the executive branch, and Trump can do as he pleases. And the American people want that as well. All right, let's continue. All right, UAP James. White House officials tell Rep. Burchett that the President Trump is being blocked on the UFO files. They're going to take this high road and say it's going to disrupt a religion. I don't buy that. As a Christian, that doesn't affect me one bit. Let's see the rest of this. It is going to shake a lot of the church, because a lot of the church has no idea where demons come from. If you watched our Shabbat Shalom last week, there was a Pew poll. 45% of pastors in the United States are teaching that there's no literal hell. Well, there's no literal hell, then there's no demons. And if there's no demons, there's no heaven. But if you know the book of Enoch in Genesis, it all makes sense. He says, I don't buy that. As a Christian, that doesn't affect me one bit. I think they need to disclose everything. I agree. All right, Daily Mail, CIA accused of poisoning the sky with toxins as files expose secret weather-controlled agenda. It was RFK Jr., I think, just yesterday or the day before, came out and said that those chemtrails are coming from DARPA. All right, here's John Solomon on Lee Zeldin. Let's watch.
Today, I interviewed Lee Zeldin, the EPA chief, and he said that he's been digging into that $29 billion in green energy grants that he blocked, money that he saved the American taxpayers. It was going out the door at the end of the Biden administration. He told me today he has found a major self-dealing scandal. In other words, Obama and Biden administration officials were moving money around to former cabinet secretaries, to donors, to political activists. Stacey Abrams, one of them, we know about that from our reporting earlier this year, and that he's now made several criminal referrals. Go check out that story tomorrow morning at justthenews.com. We'll have all the details, all of the receipts.
Well, we have to get John Solomon back. He's been dropping some bombshells. And what I've been hearing is that John Solomon is going to be getting teed up for even more. He's going to be very busy. All right, Gunther, Harmeet Dillon is calling for the recusal of Fulton County Judge Eleanor Ross from the Georgia election integrity case after it was revealed the judge allegedly attended a celebratory event honoring Fannie Willis. They all hang out together, and they all pay each other, is what John Solomon says. All that money goes back to their cronies. Daily Mail, China's Nostradamus issues chilling warning about Trump's UFO file release. Atrocities are coming. We're going to have one of the most explosive Junes on record. All this information coming from the UFO files, all this information coming from Tulsi Gabbard, all this information coming from the John Solomons, that more is to come. The election stealing, January 6th, it's going to get intense. All right, here's Spartacus. Eric, now Secretary Marco Rubio, just embarrassed Senator Cory Booker, alias Spartacus, thinking he knows more about foreign policy than Rubio. We're allowing Iran to sell oil. They've made 10 to 50 billion. Let's see the rest of that. I won't go through all of it. But I don't think I'd want to get into debate with Marco Rubio when it comes to this stuff, because he knows his stuff. Cory Booker, not so much. They did not get 50 billion. They're losing hundreds of millions per day because of the blockade. Spartacus, the strait was open before the unjustified war. Now we're scrambling. This regime is getting money. It's the same Democrats and the same fake news that keeps telling you every day that Iran is winning the war. That is treasonous. Rubio, I don't understand how they're getting what revenue are you referring to? Spartacus, from the Chinese, you're proposing they receive. This is like the same Obama nuclear deal you criticized. Rubio, they intended to do this anyway. Spartacus, now we're begging to get into a deal you trashed. Rubio responds, there's no begging. No one's begging. The Iranians might be begging because they're losing hundreds of millions per day. I don't know where you're getting this perception. Iran is stronger. No navy, lack of industrial base, missile launchers. Their economy is far worse today. Hundreds of billions of reconstruction costs will be needed from them. Just continue to lie all the way down. All right, here, this is the priest I was talking about earlier. Let's listen to the priest.
Demons indeed can break into the physical world, and at times they can be seen. We actually have some photos of such things, and that we have documented that. Sometimes people will see shadow men. Many people who are possessed will see indistinct dark shadows, possessed houses, globes of light, all sorts of things, and more direct manifestations, evil hands, we've seen that, and actually images of beast-like creatures. So at times, demons will be manifest in this world. I had an incident not too long ago where someone who had a particular gift, and we've documented that gift, and she was shown a picture of a UFO. She said it's a demon. There's no question in my mind, personally. Again,
the problem is most Americans have never seen a demon. I didn't see a demon in my entire life until I went to Liberia. And there I am in Liberia, and there's a demon and a woman, and then there was a demon and another guy. And I didn't know what to do. And all I remember in the Bible is praying and praying in the Spirit. And that woman, I remember this like yesterday, the demons, there was at least 7 demons inside her. They whistled out. You could just hear whistling away. And immediately, as the Bible says, about 5 to 6 Liberian pastors had her accept Christ as her Lord and Savior. Big African man, same thing, was getting slain by this demon over and over again. And then finally the demon released and accepted Christ. They are real. All right, open source intel. CENTCOM says U.S. forces disabled the Boswellian flag tanker MT Lexi after ignored repeated warnings while heading towards Iran's Karg Island. That's not a good idea. Zap you go. All right, Mark, Pakistan foreign minister's secret message to Rubio. Iran will demonstrate a nuclear bomb. This ties into what I was told that we're concerned potentially of a rogue nuclear bomb that Iran has. Whether they built it themselves, got it somewhere, I don't know which one it is, or if it's one of those suitcases. But this is what I heard as well. And a development that has flown under the radar of mainstream reporting. Well-connected former CIA intelligence agent Larry Johnson. Let's see the rest. Has come forward with a direct warning from highest levels. Pakistan's foreign minister personally delivered a message to Secretary Marco Rubio on Friday, stating that Iran is prepared to demonstrate a nuclear weapon should the current escalation continue. This revelation, which Johnson is racing to confirm with his sources, introduced a terrifying new dimension to the conflict that few have anticipated. Pakistan's foreign minister delivered a direct message to Marco Rubio, stating that Iran will do a demonstration with a nuclear weapon. This would be detonated in a way to send a message to both Israel and the United States. Larry Johnson explained this move comes if the current escalation continues without resolution. The critical unknown. It is not clear if this is a nuclear weapon developed by Iran or one given to Iran by Pakistan or North Korea, because both Pakistan and North Korea have them. And I was told North Korea got their nuclear weapon from uranium-1, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, the same way Iran did. The former CIA agent said he does not yet have the answer to this critical question. Either way, the ability to demonstrate it marks a dangerous new standoff. The bottom line, intelligence from a highly connected ex-CIA operative places the specter of an Iran nuclear demonstration at the heart of the current crisis, turning what was conventional standoff into something far more perilous. It was a year ago. I mentioned this today on Wednesday with Julie Green. I was told when we were going and looking on the East Coast, they were looking for rogue bombs. There was 2 suitcase-type bombs that they did not know where they were at. And then last summer, I was told by a really good source that they captured. They got them both, and the security wasn't bad now. But now maybe there's another one that maybe we didn't get, or there was another one that nobody talked about. All right, breaking U.S. war with Iran is now over. Marco